In this video, I'm going to cover a Rev Procedure 2020-51. What does that mean to a small business? It's called either I've applied for a PPP loan debt forgiveness, or I decide not to apply for the debt forgiveness, and I want to deduct those expenses that I would have used to qualify for loan forgiveness. So what this means is that no matter when in 2020, whether the loan was partially forgiven or the taxpayer decides not to apply for the loan, this is a clarification to say those expenses that you would have utilized for debt forgiveness or the expenses you would have utilized for part of a loan not forgiven, how to handle it on a tax return for 2020, 2021 future. In this Rev procedure, what it says is that they realize there's going to be those taxpayers that have a PPP loan. They apply for the debt forgiveness and not all the loan is forgiven. Then what do I do? Well, a lot of times it may be in the next year. So if it's in 2020 and the loan is forgiven, but not all of it's forgiven, those expenses that were not used for debt forgiveness in 2020 are deductible. This also clarified as a safe harbor, which means a free pass. It's a free pass. If you later on I'm going to tell you the facts of a statement you will attach to a timely filed return, and with that statement, you're going to be able to utilize this deduction. It's business expenses. If we're in 2020, we apply for the loan, as I said a moment ago, and there's certain items, there were certain non-qualified expenses. Those can be written off in 2020. There may be a modification to the rules, and part of the debt was not forgiven. And again, as I said, the person intends not to even apply for forgiveness. In that case, there is no adjustment to any expenses. So I'm going to look here real quick at how we qualify for this. What small businesses are eligible for the safe harbor? And there's actually two tests. They've incurred the expenses that would qualify. They've either applied for the loan forgiveness on the 3508 series, or they're going to apply for it next year. But they don't find out until 2021 that notified by the lender that part of that debt will not be forgiven. So what do? The second group is where that a person decides they're not going to file for debt forgiveness at all. And they irrevocably, which is part of the statement on the tax return, they irrevocably say they're not going to file for the PPP loan. So we're now in 2021. I'm trying to convert this to real world. We're in 2021. The lender gives notice to the taxpayer, to the small business, that $1,000 of your PPP loan is not going to be forgiven. At that point in time, what this safe harbor is saying, I now can deduct $1,000 more because I couldn't have deducted because the expenses, as we've learned in a video that we just did, you can see it below on a different, on what happens in transition that the loan has not been forgiven by the end of December 31st, 2020. That's in a different video. But on this one, we're in 2021. What happens? Well, number one is you're going to be able to make a statement. We'll cover again in just a moment. You're going to be able to make a statement to say that $1,000 was not forgiven. So I'm going to have the option, and I'm seeing this so much more in the IRS, but I'm going to have an option to either go back and amend the return if I haven't filed it. But if I haven't filed it, including extension, I can pick up that $1,000 on my 2020 return. So let me explain that. So we're coming along, whether it's a Schedule C, a Schedule F, a S Corp partnership, whatever, and we get the filing date next spring. What we do is we put it on extension if the debt hasn't been forgiven yet. That way, we have all the way up to the fall of 2021 to see if there is part of the debt not forgiven, and we can adjust that $1,000 and include it in the return. The other way, if we've already filed the return, then what we can do is it gives us an option in the safe harbor procedure to either go back and amend the return, or we can actually use it in 2021's return as an expense. Very flexible. to the person that just says, I'm not applying, and actually you can apply for PPP debt forgiveness on the 3508 series up till next October 2021. So what happens at some point in time in 2021, you, the taxpayer, go, I don't want to do this. It was a few $1,000s. I just rather not apply. Then you're going to file on the return. Again, you can file it on an amended return, a return under extension for 2020, or you can file it on a 2021 return if the 2020 is already filed, but you don't want to do an amended return. You have the exact same set of rules, the exact same flexibility under both situations. Situation one, part of the loan was not forgiven, but we don't find out till 2021, or during 2021, you, the taxpayer, decide, I'm going to make this irrevocable election. That's how we get there. So what I want to do is I actually want to go to the Rev procedure. It actually has procedures and steps, but the big thing is I want to tell you how to, on the return, file a statement for this safe harbor procedure. So if you'll look here on the slide of the list, what is that statement? The statement must be titled the Rev Procedure 2020-51 Statement. And then here's the following requirements. Again, look at the screen. One, the taxpayer's name, address, Social Security number, and employee ID number. Secondly, a statement specifying whether the taxpayer is eligible taxpayer under Section 301, 302, and that's the two options that I just mentioned. 3, a statement the taxpayer applies to under 401 and 402. Right there, let's stop. What does that mean? Section 3 means it's qualified expenses. We qualified for a PPP loan. Section 4 is how do we write that off? And then you got the amount and date of disbursements of the taxpayer's covered loan, the amount of the covered loan. That's 5. 6 is the date the taxpayer was denied or decided no longer to seek the covered loan forgiveness. And right there is right there is what you're doing in Section 3 and Section 4. And finally, total amount of eligible expenses and non-deductible eligible expenses that are reported on this return. So again, it's more so of a statement saying, here's who I am. This is a statement under Rev Procedure 2020-51. You're disclosing who it is, and you're disclosing the date the loan was either not forgiven or the irrevocable election. And at that point in time, you're going to disclose the expenses. Again, an overview, at least it gives you the options to the safe harbor in the case, again, to wrap this, a PPP, a part of the loan being denied as far as debt forgiveness in 2021, or the taxpayer has not filed for debt forgiveness, and in that case, or misses the deadline. In that case, what happens is that they can just on that statement say, I'm not going to apply for the loan, and so I do not have to reduce any expenses. Please stay tuned. As usual, I hope this helps. It's a very specific procedure, but I think we need to be aware of it because when we go do our 2020 tax return, we need to know what to do if that loan hasn't been forgiven. Thank you. Please subscribe and see you on the next video.